Is there anything in the movie when you watched it that you thought, this is crazy, but it's actually my life. This is my family's life. Like, this would only be written in a movie. I can't believe it really happened.
I watch the movie and I think that every single time.
Life is like a roller coaster, but it's better when we go through it together. Welcome to the Candace Cameron Bure Podcast. Over the next 4 weeks, you get to join me for special extra episodes with members of the Smallbone family, who you may recognize better as singers Rebecca St. James and her brothers of the band For King and Country, Joel and Luke Smallbone. In 2023, we made a movie, Unsung Hero, which is the incredible true story of this family coming to America that hits theaters April 26th. Now, I'm not going to give it all away, but for the next 4 weeks, we're going to deep dive with Rebecca St. James, Joel and Luke Smallbone, and their amazing mom, Helen Smallbone, the true unsung hero of their family of 9. We're also going to be answering lots of listener questions in these episodes together, which just might be yours. My first guest for this bonus series is Rebecca St. James. Rebecca has had a huge career in music that launched with her self-titled record in 1994. Rebecca is one of the most defining artists in Christian music history. She's a Grammy winner, a multi-Dove Award winner. She's an actress, an author, a podcaster, and a worship leader. Rebecca has a brand new podcast she's co-hosting called Practice Makes Parent, with focus on the family. And her most recent album is Kingdom Come with Bethel Music. I could go on, but I would just rather you hear from her. So welcome, Rebecca.
Hi, my friend. It's good to see you, Candace.
It's so good to see you too. Thank you for being here.
It's my joy.
I'm so excited that we have not only this opportunity just to have a conversation about being moms and being women in ministry and entertainment, but I'm like so excited about this huge project that we get to share together, the movie Unsung Hero.
Oh, thank you. We're thrilled that you're a part of it. We're so honored that you took the time with all that you've got going on to be a part of our family's movie. Thank you for doing that.
Are you kidding me? It has been all my pleasure and a blessing to me. And I'm so grateful that I know your family, that I know you guys, and it's been a long relationship. But as we were talking a little bit before we started this podcast, I feel like I'm really getting to know all of you as people. It's been such a huge blessing. And I think I tell the same stories over and over. Like every time I see Luke and Joel, it's always about my husband, Val, and how we first met, and we have good laughs. And, but now those are those are the things that we were like, okay, we talked about those. We're really creating new memories and new ones with you. So I love getting to know you, so much more. And
me too.
I shared in the intro, like all about all your awards and all of your accomplishments, all the things that you've done in life. And you know, this movie, Unsung Hero, is really about the huge challenges that you and your family faced growing up, moving from Australia to the US, and all of the effects that everything that your family had to go through before you could actually reach those accomplishments and do all the things that you've done, what I just listed off at the beginning. And so it's such a beautiful story. And it's your story. It's a true life story about the hardships and the way your family fought through it and got through it and still work through it. And then how that made you the mom and the wife and person you are today, and how you get to parent your children and be the wife that you are. And so I can't wait to have a conversation with you about those things. And we answer lots of listener questions on my podcast.
Yeah, I love that. I know
that you're going to have a lot of insight, and we'll just share. We're going to give some advice and encouragement in this conversation.
Sounds good. I love that.
But I would like to know, because you've had such a successful career, and I believe we share this, that there was a time when you walked away from the spotlight and you invested that into your family. And so I would love to know that part of your life and where your heart was at in all of that and how difficult or optimistic those decisions were in your life.
Well, so to back it up just a little bit, the part of my life that the movie highlights is when we moved to America and we lived by faith for a couple of years because our family, went through some big challenges. But we saw God move, and that was a real time of adventure and a time of preparation for what we had coming up. Like, I love that you highlighted that in what you just said, because we saw God do miracles. We saw the power of prayer. We saw so much of God's character in how he showed up for our family. So when I started music at 16, really young, I had a message. Like, there were people who were cynical about, what does a 16-year-old have to say? What life has she experienced? How can she write songs or speak in shows? But God had given me a testimony at that point, because we had been living by faith for like 2 years at that point. And I could say prayer is powerful. God moves in our lives. So then fast track to like about 15 years later, I had started really young, and there's certain stresses that come along, as you know, with starting really young. You're still forging your identity. And so I think what I didn't know at 16 was how to guard my heart. Like I know now that guard your heart, out of it flow the well springs of life. This is a really, really important scripture that I know deeply how important that is now. But I didn't know what healthy yeses and healthy nos looked like at that point. So 15 years in, I was starting to lose my voice from stress and anxiety. It was almost like I was having a panic attack on stage where I just couldn't breathe. And you have to be able to breathe to sing. So it felt like I was failing. It felt like I can't do what I've done for 15 years. And it slowly got worse to where it was then affecting my speech. I was so anxious. I just couldn't get enough breathe to talk properly. Yeah. So in that time, I moved to California, and God was leading me more into acting as well as singing and book writing and other things. But he was also leading me out of music. And when I met my husband and we got married, which was my life dream, and then we had our first child, I knew it was time. And it probably had been time for a while at that point. I was pretty burnt out. I loved Jesus. I still believed in everything I was singing, but I was just really worn out. I was like a skeleton emotionally. So it was, I was still functioning. It was like, I use the word that I was an emotional mental anorexic. So it had been kind of eating into my own personhood for years. I was still doing what I was doing, but it had cost me a lot. So it was very obvious by the time that I finished up that I needed to stop.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah. So I felt like God was extracting me, it was like him just saying, hey, I have a greener pasture for you, and I'm bringing you out into this new thing and this new season of your life, and just like, watch what I'm going to do. Like it was him bringing me into a new hopeful time.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And hard when maybe you push that boundary, like maybe looking back, you're like, God, you gave me the signs earlier.
Yes.
And I didn't listen.
Do you relate to that? Do you relate to that at all? Like, was there times in your career where you were like, this is just tough and challenging, it's costing me a lot?
You know what I'll say? Not so much in entertainment, but when I did step away from entertainment and then was raising my kids, I started speaking at churches and kind of doing that circuit. And I loved sharing my testimony with people. And it was a way I could still connect. And it was ministry, and it wasn't full time, and I loved it. However, I did that for about 8 years. And then there was a point, I don't think the stress degree wasn't what you experienced.
So
it wasn't quite that extreme, but I got really burnt out of it. And there was a guilt that I felt because it was ministry. And I'm like, but I'm sharing my testimony. I'm sharing Jesus.
100%.
And so why would I not want to do that anymore? Why
100%.
how could I be burned out doing that?
Yes. 100%. You get it.
Yeah. So I totally relate. And that's when I decided to take a step back and say, well, I can still minister in other ways, but maybe right now I need to just minister to my children.
100%.
And my husband, I don't need to be on a stage to be able to share with people. And that then allowed me to refocus my life and the things that I wanted to do, and then actually prioritize what God was calling me into, which eventually 100%. Was actually back into the entertainment industry.
Yes. And I don't know if you relate to this too, but I know that in that time of pulling back from all of it, which again was my joy and my delight and my privilege. Like I knew that he was calling me to be a full-time wife and mom. And, but I really had to sift through my identity and my value. Like I had a counselor tell me once, Rebecca, you can sit in a room and say nothing to somebody else in the room, but just your presence and who God has made you to be is a gift. And I think I had worked myself into this mode of performance where I have to do this, and this, and this to feel like I'm contributing, but know who he has made me to be and the presence he's given me is enough. And so it was a powerful and important time in my life for sure.
It is powerful. I have tears in my eyes because I very much relate to that in a performance way. I think a lot of people, if you've grown up, especially, it's been your whole life. There's that the pressure to perform, even though there's a love, because I have a love for it, but I don't always feel like I'm enough on my own without the performance. And to sit in that and have people remind you of that you are loved just because you're you and God made you. It's not for anything that you've done, anything you've performed, how great you did at that. You did it, whatever, or how many times people say they love you.
Right.
God loves you just because he made you and you're you. And that's it. Period. End of story. But it's that's a hard, it's so beautiful. And that one's a hard one for me to recognize at times. So thanks for that reminder.
Yeah, my pleasure.
As I'm on my little, I'm in the little treadmill I'm in my little hamster wheel right now in terms of, we have so much great stuff going on. This podcast included, couldn't be happier, but that was just a word of encouragement for me today. So thanks, Rebecca.
Good. And I think it's for all of us. Like God sees our hearts and we're valued just as we are, and we can come to him just as we are. Yeah.
So you tell me how many years you kind of walked away from singing.
When I quietly retired, I thought I would never sing again, potentially, maybe do a little bit in the local church way down the track, but I was at peace about never doing it again. And then I had an experience with God in worship on stage in Alaska with all my family around, where he just changed my heart. But so much of the burnout fell away. I had miscarried at that point a couple of times. And so my husband and I were in a winter season, and he just brought spring to my heart, called me back to music. And I had our second child after he did that work in my heart. I had our second child and then our third child 2 years later. So we have 2 girls and a boy now. So just like such a story of redemption, but it was just very clear that he was just going, Rebecca, just wait and see what I've got for you. Like, it's a new season. I'm doing something new in your life, and just wait and see. And so that's why I came back to it. It was definitely him kind of out of the blue, just showing me that he had something new around the corner for me. And he has. Amazing. I would love for you just kind of did, but tell me a little bit more about your family, if you will. Yep. And then it's really going to lead us into a great question from our audience questions. Great. Okay, great. So it's I never will get over the fact that I have a husband and kids. I waited for it so long. I was 33 when I got married, 36 when I had our first child. And so the fact that I'm a wife and a mom is just such a delight to me. It's such a privilege, and I don't take it for granted, and I never will. So my husband and I have been married 13 years now, and we have a daughter, Gemma, who's 10. Imogen is nearly 6, and River is 3. So we are busy. There's a lot going on, but we homeschool. We do, any music stuff that I'm doing, or book writing or podcasting or any of it. We do it as much as we can as a family. So the family comes for a lot of it. Yeah. And it's just a family adventure. I take one of the girls with me, and it's a big blessing.
In the movie Unsung Hero, there's such an incredible moment at the end of the movie, which I'm not going to say because I want you all to watch the movie. But how much of, I think you know where I'm going, how much of an inspiration was your mom to you and wanting to be a mother in your life?
I mean, so much. Yeah. So there is a part at the end of the movie where my mom and I are standing side of stage before a big festival. It's like Creation Festival in the mid-90s. And in real life, I was there that day on the other side of the stage with my mom standing behind me. And I'm like crying because Kira Lee, that plays me in the movie, looks exactly like me in that scene.
She really does.
Wardrobe, I mean, makeup, hair was perfection. So very few people get to see their counterpart, like their young self, you know, in real life and have that kind of moment. Like, I mean, it's just such a unbelievably mind-boggling moment that I had. And then I turn to my mom and I say, Mom, that was us, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, like praying before going on stage or having a conversation before going on stage. And so, you know, she is my hero. What she did in giving so much to her family, being a wife and a mom, and just dedicating her heart to being a great wife and mom was my dream, and is my dream. And so, yeah, she's a big inspiration.
That's amazing. It's every mom's dream to hear your children talk about you in that way.
To rise and call you blessed, right?
Yes.
Proverbs 31.
Exactly.
Yes. I pray that my children, when they're grown, can authentically do that.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah, right? I think it is every mom's dream.
Yes, it really is. Well, here's our first question. It's from Nadia. She needs some encouragement. She said, when everything is happening for everyone else around you, but not for you, when you've dedicated your life to God, how do you cope? I'm currently on a 5-year trying to conceive journey while my sisters are both expecting their 3rd and 4th child without trying.
Wow.
I know that's a big question. There is a lot of pain. Nadia, my heart goes out to you. Rebecca, you already shared earlier with Thera that you've had loss in pregnancy. What encouragement do you have for Nadia?
Well, a couple ideas would come to mind that I hope are helpful. I mean, one, I definitely relate because, you know, the whole idea that hope deferred makes the heart sick, which is a biblical concept, has been true in my life at various points because I waited so long to get married. And I was very publicly talking about I'm waiting for my future husband and had spoken about purity a lot. And then it was just year after year after year of being single and watching all my friends, you know, including best friends and then church friends and school friends, like get married, and family, you know, even siblings getting married ahead of me. So it was just a very challenging time in my life. I think one, going to God about it, I mean, it sounds so basic, but knowing that he can handle your pain and your questions and your fear and the agony of your heart, like David in the Psalms just would pour out his heart to God so authentically, and he can handle that. Like God, the creator of the universe, can handle his children's, you know, questions of why, Lord, and like, I'm hurting so badly. And then he will comfort us in that pain. I've seen that over and over and over again. And he will redeem. That's what I've seen over and over again. He will redeem that pain. Also making sure that you have people in your life that can relate, that are going through what you are going through. I think especially in the day and age we're living in now, you can find people that are in exactly the same life season, whether they're in your local community, at your church, in your friend group, or beyond. Like you can find a support group online that has people that are going through it. And I think there's something so comforting about someone else going, girl, I completely get you. And I'm there right now. And I'm walking through it with God together with you. So I think having that support is incredibly important, and just trusting the good Father that we have, which is way easier to say than live.
I agree. I think that's the best advice. I'm even trying to think, Nadia, what I would say to you. And truthfully, I don't have that experience. Like in my family, I'm the baby of my family, but I was the second one to get married at 20. And, we're able to have my children. I had 3 children by 25.
Wow.
And so I very much hesitate to give advice where I don't know the exact pain and need. And I would just offer to sit with you in it.
Yeah.
Because I think that's, and sometimes, I think of her sisters, and I don't know if you've expressed, Nadia, to your sisters, the pain that you may feel. And yet I want to encourage you not to have any bitterness towards them, that it has come more easily or naturally to them, but to pray to God and also ask for the joy within their families, that you can share in that joy while finding comfort with others that are going exactly through what you're going through. Yeah,
it's good. Really good. Yeah. Forgiveness and not holding on to that bitterness. Yeah. Is really, really important, because it only hurts us. So thank you for that word. I think that's a good word for all of us in every season, to forgive easily.
Yep. Okay. Our next question is from Heather. She says, when it comes to having kids, we want our kids to build their own relationship with God. How do we as moms help plant the seeds so it grows, especially with teens? When my kids were little, they seemed on fire. Now in their teens, they're so rebellious. I trust God, but I miss the fire they had. I'm like, oh, Heather. I'm like, because I've been through it. My kids are all in their 20s, and I'm like, trust me, you are not alone. I feel like as parents, we go through all of those seasons, and your kids aren't the only ones. It's normal and natural. I of course have seen kids that just love the Lord through their whole lives, but within their teen years, their brains aren't fully developed. That frontal lobe is not developed, and they make really dumb decisions. And I know I sure did as a teen. No matter how much I love the Lord, I just think it's so natural and normal. And I would encourage you to just keep doing what you're doing. Keep at it. Keep being a mom that's praying for them and pouring into them and reading the Bible with them and encouraging them to make good choices and being there with them through the consequences when they don't.
Yeah.
What advice would you have?
Well, our kids are kind of on the younger end. So similar to you with the last question, I'm not living in that space, so I can't fully relate to it right now. But I can speak to what my parents did and kind of the attitude that they took when it came to us being teens. And I think that they did a lot really well. They fostered, and I've seen this with you and your kids just in watching your interaction with them, they really fostered a close relationship with us where they were available to talk through the good, the bad, the ugly. Like we'd have these conversations sitting on the bed, folding washing maybe with mom at the end of the day. And it would just be about everything, all the emotions, everything we were going through. They really provided, especially mom, a safe place for us to just come and talk and be heard. And lots of like really rich car time too, like just time sitting in the car. I also just think that they modeled it, and there was modeled a legitimate faith in Jesus, as parents. They were just living it, which is really powerful. There was an authentic relationship that we saw. They modeled just coming to Jesus about it. Let's pray together. Let's go to him about it. And they also just said, look, we follow Jesus. We believe in him. We believe he's the way. We believe his way is the best way. What the Bible talks about is the best way. It's worked for us. If you choose to go a different path and you choose to even, get involved in drugs or underage drinking or these kind of things, like there will be consequences of that. And here are the consequences. This is how that's probably going to turn out for you. That is your decision. We can't force you to make good decisions, But for us, following Jesus and living his way and staying away from some of these dangerous things in life has turned out well. And it was a very like free, very hands-off, like not hands-off in a disconnected way, but in a very non-manipulative way.
Right.
It was like
allowing them to make the choice. Yes.
This has worked for us and we're really glad about it. You can choose what you're going to do and it's really on you. And it was very like, ooh. Like they didn't seem fearful. They seemed very, it's in your corner. And something about that freedom to just go, it's in your corner to just choose how you're going to live your life made us want to actually live how they had lived. Like it was a really powerful mentality. And I want to have that when our kids move into the teen years, because I didn't sense fear and I didn't sense manipulation. I didn't sense control. They had kind of handed these choices back to us, giving us responsibility along the way and smaller things too. But it was very powerful how they communicated our freedom of choice. And really a lot of us wanted to emulate them. Yeah. Yeah.
That's really good parenting. It really is. I feel like my parents did similar things to us or with us in growing up.
With their mentality.
Yes. And we've tried to do that with our kids in the same way. Yeah. And I think that I can honestly say, if I had my kids here today, that we've always told them it's ultimately your choice. It's your life. Yes. I can't live your life for you.
Yes. Yes.
And there's consequences to whatever choice you're going to make, good, bad, and ugly. However, there's a safety with your dad and me that even if you choose to do something that we wouldn't, I'm never going to stop loving you.
Yes.
I'll always be here for you.
Yes.
I'm not your get out of jail free card in the sense that like you have to pay for the consequences. Yeah, you have to own up yourself. But I'll always be here for you.
100%. The unconditional love is there.
And I will walk
like God's for us.
Walk through it with you always. So there is something in that. But, teens are teens, and sometimes they just make bonehead decisions, and then they can go back and look at it and go, I don't even know why I did that. What was I thinking? And then their maturity comes. And that's what so many people told me that were ahead of me with kids that had already been through the teen years. They said, don't be fearful of it. Be intentional about it. And just know that it changes when they get into their 20s. They mature. And you just, I think about myself.
And you're fostering. Yes. Oh, yeah. And you're fostering that relationship.
Yeah. And that's what happens with most of us. So, as we grow through life. So I'm like, when I look back at my own teen years, I'm like, it's the same thing I did. You eventually catch up.
Yes.
Did you know that over 85% of grass-fed beef sold in the U.S. is imported from overseas? Yeah, I know. It's a staggering number, isn't it? That's why you need Good Ranchers. They're the #1 source for 100% USA-grown meat you can trust to feed your family. Instead of getting overpriced imported meat at the store, Good Ranchers can deliver the meat for your family straight to your door. It's easy to switch from the grocery store to Good Ranchers. Right now, subscribe to any of their 100% grown in the USA meat boxes to secure my special offer of free chicken for a year. Yep, they're adding over 2 pounds of their fan favorite pre-trimmed chicken breast to every order for a year when you subscribe and use my code CANDY. Go to goodranchers.com and use my code CANDY to claim over 25 pounds of free chicken today. goodranchers.com, American meat delivered. Okay, let's see. We now have a question from Joanna. She asks, any advice for a stay-at-home mom with 2 under 2 years old, both boys, neither sleep through the night? In regards to regulating emotions when there's constant chaos and overstimulation, which often gets the best of me. I'm very patient, but I find myself snapping at them or yelling at them because of my limit. And then I feel guilty and mad at myself. So I cry and then I try to connect and I apologize. But I wish that there was a way that I wouldn't even get to the point of snapping or yelling. Any help is appreciated. I feel like 2 under 2, stay-at-home mom.
Yes. And boys too.
And boys,
that's a lot.
It's a lot.
Point. Yeah. Wow.
What would you share with Joanna? Do you have any go-to practical sleeping tips if her boys aren't sleeping through the night?
You know, I read all the books. You know, I thought if I read all the books before I have my first child and I, you know, and dot all those I's and cross those T's, then it's going to just be so great. Like I'm just going to have it made in the shade as a parent. And, you know, I got into like a few weeks into actual parenting and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is so much harder. And at that point, I felt like I'd already raised a family because I was second mom to all my siblings. And the movie kind of shows that too, you know, just the connection that I had with the younger siblings, and I was second mama for sure. So, but then when you're doing it yourself, it's just so much harder and you're responsible for these little lives. And I definitely relate to what she's saying because I handle things poorly and then I'm down on myself and I feel upset. So I think one thing that probably comes to mind first is, in answer to your question, no, on the sleeping thing, you know, that you'd hear, oh, you should let him cry it out or whatever. And I mean, I just could not. Like our first daughter, like barely napped even as a tiny baby. Like I would read what amount of sleep she was meant to be getting. And I would almost cry at those stats because it was just like, what the heck? She is not getting anywhere near the naps that she's meant to be or the nighttime sleep. So I probably can't even speak to that. There are a lot of books on it.
Yeah.
But I think boundaries, like the word that came to mind when I was hearing her talk about it is just kind of boundaries. Like if your husband could get up to them even a couple times, you know, a couple nights in the week where you can just kind of sleep through, or you could have your mom come or a friend even just kind of come if you're so sleep deprived that you just can't think straight. Somebody kind of step in the gap for you to where it's like you can get that sleep, or even napping in the day. Like if they're napping, which they should, you know, hopefully they are at that age, napping while they nap. Like, you know, these are the kind of things, like having boundaries to where it's like, okay, I have to ask for help because I'm trying to do all this and it's just humanly impossible to keep my cool when I'm this maxed out. Like self-care is a thing and it's an important thing. You know, if mom ain't happy, ain't nobody happy is quite true. And then we're not happy with ourselves too if we're not handling things, you know, smoothly and peacefully for the most of the time with our kids. So that would probably be my thought. What comes to mind for you, Candace?
Yeah. I feel like if I just heard from more people when my kids were young, especially in the toddler age, that it was all normal and you're going through what most moms are going through and you're feeling and the way that most moms feel and you're reacting the way most moms feel, I wouldn't have felt so guilty about it. But sometimes and especially in our world today, I mean, I raised my kids and it's over 20 years ago. But today in our Instagram picture perfect world, it's even harder because you're like, wait, your house looks like that, the comparison game, and it's clean. And then your kids are in these cute outfits. And then and it's like, no, it's not real life. So everything that you're feeling and the way that you're reacting is very real and very, very normal. And
it's good.
You know, my advice that I learned along the way to try to not get to the point of snapping or yelling, which I still did all the time. But what I tried to practice more was teaching my kids that slow obedience is not obedience. And so when mommy asks you to do something, if I ask you to go put your toys away, you need to do that. And maybe I'll ask you twice, but I'm not then going to go, okay, now I'm going to count to 3. Well, if you still don't do it, then I'm going to tell daddy when he gets home, because it's too many opportunities and then you just get frustrated.
Oh, yeah.
So it was about saying, you know, you need to go pick up your toy. And if you don't go pick up your toy, okay, well, we're going to go sit in the chair for 5 minutes, or we're going to have a timeout, whatever that consequence is for you. But teaching them at a younger age to listen to you. And it's training, it's discipline. It's so much effort on our part because the reality is it's so much easier to go, oh, okay, I'll just pick up the shoes. I'll just put the toy in the basket. But we're not actually doing our kids much service to do it for them.
And it's harder for us.
It's way harder
for us in the long run. In the long run, it's harder short term to follow through with what we've said. I mean, my mom has always said that you've got to follow through. If you're going to say something, you have to follow through. You have to be consistent. It's so important in parenting. But it is harder in the short run, but so much easier long term, because as she says, you then enjoy your kids. If they're actually being responsive, they're listening, they're being obedient, there's boundaries within the family, then, it's so much more enjoyable. The other thing I thought of too is we can give ourselves mommy timeouts as well. Like I heard somebody say that to where it's like, you know what? I'm about to lose it. I'm just going to go to the bedroom and take 5 and, and then come back to this conversation. We can stop ourselves as well, which is a nice idea.
I did that many, many times.
Yes.
It's
mommy
a good
timeout. Yes.
Mommy timeout. Sometimes I just go scream in my closet and then I'm like, okay.
Sometimes we need that. I can breathe again. Yes.
Tell me a little bit about, you did talk to her about your mom, but I would just love to hear more about her, because she is, I mean, truly, when I watched the movie Unsung Hero, she is the unsung hero of the movie. But there's many, many of you, and I say you like the characters in the movie, but it's really your family, that we can all relate to, that there's an unsung hero within many of you. But I just think that, the way that in which your mom is portrayed and the way that she held your family together was in an unspoken kind of way, is like such a beautiful thing.
Remarkable.
And we're going to be talking to your mom in a few weeks. So I'm excited about that conversation, but tell me about your mom, maybe growing up or just some of the memories.
Well, the film really shows her, portrays her perfectly. I mean, the woman that was cast, Daisy Betts, is just amazing. And the film, I mean, I'm so proud of the film. I think it turned out so well. But Daisy just carried Mom's essence so well. And it was this pairing of strength and vulnerability. Because it's not just that she was all strong. There was vulnerability too, and it shows both. But she just has a very sincere relationship with Jesus, a sincere prayer life, sincere desire to love well, especially when it comes to her family, like a fierce kind of mama heart that loves, her family and wants to be, sees being a wife and a mom as a high calling. I mean, she would say the highest calling she feels in life is to be, a parent and to, in marriage and family life. She just sees it as such a high calling. And I saw that lived out. And so much of how she parented us growing up, I want to emulate in our family's life. And she really, for my whole life, has been one of my closest friends. Like there is, that sense of we can talk about the hard things and the good things. And she's a bit of a legend.
She is a legend. Is there anything in the movie when you watched it that you thought, this is crazy, but it's actually my life. This is my family's life. But this is so crazy. This would only be written in a movie. I can't believe it really happened.
I watched the movie and I think that every single time. I've probably seen it 3 or 4 times now, just from start to finish. And every single time I'm going, oh my goodness, this is actually almost everything in the film is true. But there is so much that is so challenging and so rich. And then the miracles that we saw and the answers to prayer and, groceries on our doorstep and the furniture coming to our house. And God providing in such specific ways for our family. It was all so true. But I watched the movie and I'm blown away at it is. It's like somebody just decided that they were going to write a movie that has so much drama and so much joy and so much. I mean, I like too that Candace, that there's comedy in it. Aren't you grateful for the comedic moments in the film where the kids say something and you just kind of come out of the drama and you just go, oh my goodness, that's so funny. I love hearing the audience laugh because it really is this mixture of drama and in these comedy moments that lighten up, like the challenges. But it's a really special film, and I just pray that God uses it powerfully.
Yeah. Do you have a specific hope that the audience will take away after they watch it?
Well, you used a word like right at the beginning of our time together today, encourage. And I think if I have one sense of calling in my life, it's to encourage people that, are either listening or, absorbing one aspect of my ministry. And I noticed recently, and it sounds probably really basic, but that hidden within the word encourage is the word courage. And I think when we are truly encouraging another person, we are calling out their courage to stand firm or to be lifted up or to be kind of their truest person in God. And I think, and I know, I don't just think, I know that this movie does that. It encourages people in marriage, it encourages people in family, it encourages people in faith. People are walking away going, I want to live differently because God is good, and I want to trust him more with all areas of my life, and I want to love my family well. Like the quote at the end of the movie from Mother Teresa is, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. And I just think that there's such a aspect to that in this movie of encouragement in faith, in family life. And I think it's really needed. I think it's really needed in our culture today, encouragement.
Yeah, I do too. Thank you for that. I know everyone's going to want to know, we know the movie is about your family, and it really spotlights you a lot in your story growing up. Are we actually going to get to see you in the movie?
Yes. Actually, every single one of the grown-up kids in our family is in the movie somewhere. Yeah. So I'm in the movie at the beginning. I'm a flight attendant on the flight from Sydney to Los Angeles. And so it's fun. Like, it was really nice being on set. It was great seeing you on set. That was a really sweet moment. Yeah, I was there just like briefly, but on and off. My husband was super involved in the film too, and producing and helping direct parts of it too. So it's been a real sweet journey to be involved with. Yeah.
It's so great. I'm so excited about this film.
Thank you.
I have one final question we're going to take before we wrap this up. And this is from Olivia. And these are some of my favorite questions because I love when young people are listening to this podcast.
Yes.
So Olivia is 17 years old, and she wrote in and she said, I'm a junior in high school. Junior year has been the hardest year. Anxiety and worry are my constant. I often feel like I can't take another day. Any advice would be appreciated.
Wow.
I know the pressures can be so hard. And at 17 and junior year, I remember junior year was my hardest year. I think it is for a lot of people because that's when grades are important. If you are deciding to go to college, you're taking all the tests, you're putting in your applications. It can be so incredibly stressful. And also just having the pressures from your peers. And again, a comparison game of like, well, what are they doing? What am I doing? And you're trying to make these lifelong decisions at 17. Like, what do I want to be when I grow up? Like, what field am I going to go into? What job am I going to have? And it can feel so overwhelming, Olivia. So you're not alone. And what advice? I mean, the advice that I would give my own kids is to say, take a deep breath every day. Start your day off with the Lord and give up all of those worries and that stress over to him every single day. Because when we walk alongside God every day, he can carry us. But it's when we try to do it in our own strength that the weight of those pressures just feel like boulders on our shoulders. And it just gets even worse. And while the day-to-day pressures may still be there, it just feels like a much lighter load when you're walking along with Jesus, knowing that like he sees it all. He cares for you. He loves you. He's going to help you find the right path and open and close the doors that he wants you to go through and close the ones that he doesn't. And so there's a trust that I would continue to encourage you. And I don't know, Olivia, if you read the Bible or not, but keep staying in the Word of God or get into the Word of God. And here's my other mom advice. Be really wise who you surround yourself with.
100%.
I would say for my kids, it's probably one of the biggest pieces of advice I gave them and watched for as a parent is who they were surrounding themselves with, because people can either breathe life into you or they can suck it right out of you. Yep.
Good. Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah. I think I was thinking similar lines in a way, like what are the voices that you're listening to? You know, I think social media is adding a lot of extra stress to teens. You know, already teen years are challenging, but then now you've just got so much more of that comparison game of, you know, having to be so, I think, boundaried about how much you take in those messages that are online. I think we've got to be so careful. All of us have to be so careful. And then what are the messages that we're spinning on in our minds? I mean, this is something that I'm wrestling with in my 40s. You know, it's like, what am I spinning on? What am I thinking about truth, or am I thinking about lies? And what am I speaking to myself about my value? Is it based on performance? Is it based on perception and other people thinking about me? Or is it what God speaks about me? And really taking those thoughts captive and going, no, I'm going to intentionally speak truth and hope to myself, even if I have to write it on my mirror or like have it posted around in my life in different places, you know, who I am, who God sees me as, and my value. But I think that, is so important. Who are the people in our lives, what you're saying, who are we surrounding ourselves with? And then how are we thinking? Because that's the way we're going to live. The way that we think is the way we're going to live.
Yeah. That's great advice. Olivia, thank you for writing in. Thank you for listening to this podcast too.
Yes,
I love
awesome.
it.
That's a huge compliment,
I know.
Candace.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah.
Well, Rebecca, I so enjoyed this conversation and our time together. And I am praying for you and your family and your kids and your husband and all the great things that you're doing at home and at work and within ministry. And I just... I love you very much and so appreciate you.
Thank you, friend. It's been such a joy to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. To see a trailer and find tickets for Unsung Hero, go to unsunghero.movie. And if you want my current Unwind guide that's all about emotional health, go to candace.com, where you can ask listener questions like the ones Rebecca and I talked about today. Until next time, be grateful all day, every day. Candy Rock Entertainment, all rights reserved.